Well, greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is still doing well tonight. Before we get into this upload, a couple links. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, and my merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. The links to Patreon and PayPal are in the description below, my merch displayed directly under this video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1, 2, and 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeffrey Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, the links to which are also in the description as well. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's get on with today's second part of the upload. Shall we? Alright guys, so I have no idea what happened to the video that I put up a while ago, a couple hours ago. There was no cursing in it. There was nothing. I was given no reason why it was taken down. All I know is when I looked at it again, it was in red, and I got an email saying your video was taken down. Wow, I called it in the beginning of that video too. I really did. For those of you that heard it. So I'm going to take a couple days, maybe a week, and just stick with the paranormal. Dogman. Every once in a while throw in a conspiracy. So, I don't know. I'm stressing about it though. But let's get into it. Today's first experience on the paranormal side. I love the paranormal stuff, but I don't go looking for it or anything of that matter. I work with kids, so I'm substance-free and sound of mind. The man who killed his 2 dogs and himself are still in my home. The dogs as well. A German Shepherd and a Malamute. So backstory. I got the house cheap because of its history of a very gory previous owner's suicide. He also attempted to murder someone else during his mental breakdown, but I don't know the details. He was a nice person that had no mental health support and decided to kill his beloved dogs and himself. I thought it was horrible, but man, I needed a place to live ASAP. So I braced myself against superstition or the creeps. The weirdness started immediately, pounding and moaning like the house was being hit by a bulldozer. Neighbors can hear it from outside sometimes. Huge dogs howling from somewhere inside the house. Bedroom doors opening and closing, footsteps through the kitchen hallway every night at 4 a.m. It is nerve-wracking, but also sad. More than once, I've awakened thinking my house is being broken into. Sometimes I feel somebody sitting on my bed, and more than once I've had my quilt put on top of me. This quilt is in my closet, so it had to have been carried out and placed on me. Then I started seeing the dogs walking across my bedroom carpet and standing at the foot of my bed staring at me, startling the heck out of me because I don't have a German Shepherd or a Malamute. I have a Sheltie with an overbite that can only make noise. My own dog, Kelly Barkson, went crazy at the dogs. And I ran all over the house making sure it was really spirits. Kelly now sleeps under the covers with me. We see their fluffy tails and watch them disappear into the closet. I don't think he's a bad spirit, and the dogs are certainly innocent. Often things go missing, and I'll ask him and the dogs to help, and the missing things reappear in totally odd locations, like my lipstick showing up in the freezer, or my headphones under my dresser. Places I'd never leave anything. Today's second experience on the paranormal side. This 1973 abduction case included an entire family and deceptive communications from the kidnappers. It happened during the major 1973 wave of UFO and humanoid sightings. Name, date, location. Mrs. Patty Roach and her 4 children, especially Bonnie, aged 12 to 13, and Debbie, 6, October 16th through 17th, 1973, Lehi, Utah. Preliminary, Miss Roach, a divorced mother of 7 children, was moving into a new house and fell asleep on the couch. Her youngest boy, sleeping beside her, awoke and screamed he had seen a skeleton. She thought he had seen an intruder and heard the family cat and neighborhood dogs barking, so she called the police at 12:10 a.m. They arrived and searched unsuccessfully for a prowler. Bonnie, age 12 or 13, and Debbie, age 6, told the police that the prowlers really were spacemen, and Debbie described the interior of the spaceship. Mrs. Roach remembered seeing bright lights outside prior to falling asleep. Initial activities. Under hypnosis, Miss Roach recalled that she had awakened to see a bright light shining on her and her youngest son floating away while 2 beings stood nearby. These beings held her by her upper arms and drew her out of the home. Other beings escorted the 3 struggling children. They floated through a hatch. Craft/beings. The craft waited hidden in a nearby field. Mrs. Roach did not describe the exterior, but inside was a round, bright room with stars visible through the window near the top. The beings were just over 4 feet tall and skinny, their faces mask-like and white with large, elongated eyes and a straight mouth. They wore luminous uniforms with Sam Browne belts, gloves, and a helmet-like headgear. They had long arms with 3-fingered clawed-like hands and small thumbs. Onboard features, the room contained machines like computers, a clock-like device, glass cases filled with liquid, and a floating table. A human male, about 55 years old, balding and wearing glasses, assisted the beings. Debbie described an Indian girl in a long dress on board. On-board activities. Efficient in their work, the beings treated Mrs. Roach like a specimen. She undressed and lied on the table while wires were attached to one leg and arm. A gynecological examination followed, including inserting a needle into her abdomen without pain. Another needle was inserted into her head to take her thoughts, a process she resented but could not resist. Bonnie recalled watching a group of beings and a human male as they stood around the table where her mother was laying. An Indian girl placed Debbie on some kind of machine, and Debbie recalled a line of people waiting to get on the floating table. Communication. At the onset, a being asked Debbie her name and assured her she would not be sick anymore. These beings questioned Mrs. Roach about what she loved and hated, and she understood that they had an urgent need to understand human thoughts and emotions. The human was kind but seemed deceptive and tried to trick her into believing she had been taking a ride in the craft. Termination/return. The beings wiped her with a cloth and returned her clothes, but refused to answer questions about the safety of her children. They were back in the house before the beings grasped her arms and floated back onto the couch. The beings placed the children in different places from before and departed by the time Mrs. Roach and her son awoke with fragmented memories. Aftermath. Debbie was sick just after that. Police had left, but she no longer suffered any chronic illness. Mrs. Roach and Bonnie found pinpricks in their upper arms that healed within a few days. Nearly 2 years passed from the kidnapping before Mrs. Roach began to explore this experience. Dang, that was one creepy experience that we really don't hear much about. We hear a lot about, the 70s and 80s abduction cases, but this one I'm going to kind of look into because it's kind of fascinating. I want to kind of see what these illnesses were that these people had and they were supposedly cured from. Sounds cool. Anyway, moving on. Today's third experience on the paranormal side. My girlfriend wanted to visit this hospital in Kansas City, Missouri that had been abandoned since 2001. It was built back in 1906. So we went with her parents. In the beginning, we couldn't find the entrance, and as we walked around the building, I began to feel somewhat sick to my stomach, almost as if I had to use the restroom and I could not hold it. We finally found a side entrance double door that had been sealed off with wood stapled down the middle. We had ripped it apart and were able to pull the doors open and go inside. Then we shut the doors behind us to avoid others coming in and possibly scaring us. It was a total of 6 floors with a basement included and an elevator that had no longer functioned. As we began walking, I still had that very ill sensation, as if I could not bear holding what was inside of me. We started exploring, and it just got worse. We ended up exploring the entire building from the basement, where the morgue was, to the 6th floor. Had some parts where there were needles, used fluid bags, and other prior hospital utilities that should have definitely been thrown away before closing out. Finally, 2 hours and 10 minutes later, we left the building, and I overall felt a sense of relief. The very next day, in my home at around 12:51 in the morning, I remembered something in my garage. Right next to me, as my room is in the basement, made a loud noise, and my first reaction was that my husky was inside. I texted my sister, she's 19, to come downstairs. I'm gaming at the time and didn't think much of it. She asked what I wanted, and I asked if Sophie, our husky, was inside, and she said no. So I was like, oh, okay. Well, I heard a loud noise in the garage, and she was hesitant to go out there and look, but she finally did. She noticed this plastic container had been knocked down. It had all 4 wheels, nothing on top. It just went about a foot away from the cage it was next to. We were kind of like, oh, okay. We didn't know what exactly could have caused it, definitely not the wind, as there was none. We haven't had any mice in over a year at this point. Used to have a bad mice issue. And even if we did, the force in which it was knocked, there was no way something as small as a mouse could have done it. First incident. The next, about 3 to 5 days later, my sister's upstairs in our living room that's closer to our backyard. Up at 1 a.m., messaging her friend. As she's replying with a voice message we actually have saved, she heard a loud thump ball noise, almost as if a ping pong ball bounced off of something, but a bit louder, just a random noise coming from a section of room where she claims nothing fell to have made that noise. Third incident, my mom tells me a few days later, she was up at 5 in the morning and heard a loud thump noise coming from my room. She claims it sounded like I was going up the stairs. I wasn't even home that morning/night. She heard it. I was staying at my girlfriend's house. So I'm starting to think, is there some kind of ghost or something that's making this stuff happen, or what's going on? Because I remember this started happening the day after we went to that hospital. Fourth incident, I was upstairs in my sister's room with my cat, and I'm just playing with him, and out of nowhere, something behind me, a window ledge that you can place on top as decor or for looks, had slid and fell back. It's approximately 6 to 7 feet tall, and it is placed against the wall, and my sister claims the way it was placed, no way it could have fallen without getting pushed, as it had about 65 to 70 degree angle toward the wall. Gravity definitely would have kept it stable from falling back. So at this point, I'm like, okay, what's going on? Nope, not done yet. The fifth incident, I'm at my girlfriend's house and my sister's texting me at 12:30 in the morning, or super late. She sends me a video of my kitten being super weird and staring off into a certain part of the living room. Same one, she heard the noise. She sends another video, and this is where it gets spooky. Asher lies down, and as soon as he starts looking away, the noise is heard again, and even Asher heard it, as it scared him and made him look toward the direction of the ceiling/corner of the wall, where it seemed to have come from. So now I'm like, okay, something weird is up. The last incident that happened probably about a month ago, I'm lying sleeping in my bed. Above me, there's this Joker wooden framed picture. It's placed directly center of my bed, about 6 to 10 inches above my head, and 3 inches away from where my head rests. I woke up the next day with the picture, which is roughly 1.5 feet wide by 2 feet in height, was directly next to my bed, in between the cat tower I have at the bed, and it's upside down. I could not believe it. For the life of me, I just couldn't. I kept thinking, how did it not wake me up if it fell? The nail in the wall was definitely not right. and I could see how it fell as I placed it back. But every time it fell 3 or 4 times, it fell right behind the bed, as there's a very small space for it to fit. So I don't know how it ended up next to me and upside down. Since then, nothing unusual has happened besides the garage item falling again, but something was placed above it, and we think it had something to do with it, unlike last time. My kitten also acts crazy around 1 or 2 in the morning, but it's normal from what Google says. But these incidents are freaky, and I have sound recordings for both of them. An update: my sister said she heard weird noises coming from the kitchen last night. I wasn't home. This was December 15th, 2021. December 18th, 2021. My sister's recording my kitten acting weird and sketched out at around 10:30 at night. As I was showering, she recorded another thump ball falling kind of noise right around Asher, looking up at the ceiling towards the same direction we caught him in the second video. My sister didn't realize the noise until I pointed it out, as it made me actually say WTF. Then she starts freaking out as well, as she claims she didn't recognize hearing that as she recorded it. This is kind of becoming a bit weird for me, but I still believe it can be scientifically proven. Just odd my house, after living 18 to 19 years in it, never made noises before, and before claiming temperatures drops can cause pipes to make noise. Keep in mind it's December, yet somehow the weather here is still somewhat warm. Last week we had a 70-degree Fahrenheit weather, and 50 tornadoes touched down across a few states at the same time. Tonight's fourth experience on the paranormal side. A group of friends and myself rented a place on a lake for a fun-filled drunken weekend. We're all young to mid-20s, and it was supposed to be just a big party. For the most part, that's what it was. Friday night and Saturday morning, we pretty much went all out, having a blast on the water and just doing fun, stupid stuff. Well, naturally, when Saturday afternoon rolled around, we were all so dead from going all out, we decided it would be a night of no drinking, maybe a little bit of weed smoking for us, and just kind of having a chill evening. That's what it was, relaxed. So 9 p.m. comes rolling around, and about 8 of us were inside the house, 5 outside. The house was 2 stories with a second-story deck, back porch, which was surrounded by woods, and then down through the woods you could hit the lake. I'll mention that we had already experienced some weird vibes from the locals when we first arrived in town, mostly just backcountry old-timers that I assumed were leering and irritated because we were a bunch of college-age kids looking to have a good time. But the town and the lake were so large, so it's not like anyone knew where we were staying. Anyway, 3 of my friends were on the upstairs back porch, and my other friend and I were downstairs outside just talking on this little old table near the woods. I mean, it was otherwise a really nice night. My friend and I were just getting lost in conversation. All of a sudden, there's this weird feeling that encompassed us, like an unnerving physical experience that came from the woods behind us. It was so strong, we both kind of quieted down, and then out of nowhere, this loud chanting abruptly came from the woods. I have no idea how far away it was because of the way the lake is set up, but I'm pretty sure the voices carried up through the forest. It sounded like a cult chanting away, and all of the voices were male. I mean, they were loud and perfectly in sync. I think we were frozen for about 20 seconds before I couldn't contain myself and darted toward the house, with my friend following me. I don't know how to explain the feeling that came with the chanting, but it was almost evil, like just something so powerfully uninviting. I was shaking by the time we got to the second story and ran out to the balcony with my other friends. One of them's my brother. By the time we got out there, the chanting was gone, and I naturally asked, "Did you guys hear that?" in the most shaky, freaked out voice. They all had heard it, and not seconds later, the chanting began again. So the 5 of us are out there, peering into the forest, listening to this chanting that would sometimes sound far away, and then sound relatively close. All male voices in the weirdest language, or I don't even know what it was. Sounded like some strange extreme church. Then followed the chanting, a loud bang like someone hit a huge metal object. And then the worst came, a man wailing, like in extreme pain wailing. All the hair was up. It was the freakiest experience ever. My brother and I were staring at each other in a mixture of scared excitement and horror. The wailing stopped, and then it was back to chanting, which eventually died out. I was so freaked out by it, I wanted to call the police because whoever had screamed was in a lot of pain. That mixed with the weird chanting just made me immediately think of some terrible sacrifice going on. One Fred tried to say it had been some drunk guys just messing around singing and being weird, but no way was that coming from drunk guys. They were perfectly in sync. Then the bang, and then the wail of pain, and then all that weird tension and energy was gone. Nope, I didn't call the cops, and I wish I would have, but honestly, the forest was so large, and since the lake house was up looking down at the woods and lake, it could have been from anywhere. It definitely wasn't in close proximity, but it was close enough to hear it perfectly. We went in and got some of the others, but by the time they came out, the chanting had stopped. Someone wanted to go and explore and find where it had been coming from, but obviously that was a stupid idea. After that, I was ready to go home. I can't explain the relief of driving away from there the next morning. Even now, it gives me the worst feeling. Whatever that was, it felt so wrong and evil. I never forgot that moment. I can only imagine it was some kind of weird cult. Tonight's final experience on the paranormal side. A few things I would like to clarify before sharing this. English is not my first language, and I am not really good at writing or sharing anything. Secondly, I have no mental health issues or any sort of hallucination problems. Maybe I'd be like 9 or 10 years old. My dad used to go to the office on his motorcycle or bike, and he used to come back in the evening at around 5:30 to 6:30. I remember he used to come before it started getting dark during summertime. 2 houses away from our house, there was a empty ground where all the kids used to play in the evening. So just like any other day, I was playing there. I saw my dad on his bike. He stopped the bike and nodded at me to say, "Let's go," or "Come here," but he didn't stop for me. So I thought he was obviously going home, which was seconds away from where we were playing. So I thought he went directly home and wanted me to go home. That's why he nodded. To my surprise, when I went there, my dad was not home. So, of course, I thought he went straight to the house, which was strange because, as I said, the place where I was playing was just seconds away. And how fast he went inside the house at the time, I remember being little and confused. So I went inside. There was no one in the house, and I checked the different rooms. No one was there. We also have an upper floor. Now, as I'm looking around the house, I heard a voice come from the first floor, clearly calling my name repeatedly, like when someone calls you if there's something urgent or you're getting late. And I went upstairs to find out. There was no one there. I was so confused. What was happening? And suddenly I remember being scared and confused, and I ran out of the house. Not panicking or anything, but still ran out in a hurry. So a few things that were not normal. That was not my dad because my dad arrived later that evening. Number two, when I said I was playing, as I remember, my mom and my brother also used to be out with me. So our house was locked as no one was there. I later asked my mom about this, and she told me she was also outside and the house was locked. Number three, the voice calling my name was not my dad's voice nor my brother's voice, but it was a male. I've asked about this from my parents many times, but of course I was 9 at the time, so they just ignored it. Currently, I'm 22 at this time, and I still don't know what the set of events that happened were. All right, guys, that's the paranormal side of the evening. Thank you for always tuning in. And as you can tell, I am very perturbed about tonight's video getting taken down. I have never had a video taken down, and it's very upsetting. Um, Anyway, thank you for all your support. I do so appreciate it. And please be kind to each other. May the Great Spirit watch over us all. And may He guide us down that path we call life. Until tomorrow, my friends. Until tomorrow.